Distribution networks, service and cost considerations. In this lecture, we'll consider some relationships that are key to understanding distribution networks, and then we'll look at some common types of distribution networks that are used by companies. So what is distribution? Distribution refers to the steps taken to move and store a product from the supplier stage to the customer stage in a supply chain. Now, transportation occurs between every pair of stages in the supply chain, but sometimes we call it transportation and sometimes we call it distribution. So usually what we mean is when you have business-to-business transactions between raw material suppliers or component suppliers, and selling those things to a manufacturer, then we notice that the number of customers is relatively small for a component supplier. A component supplier may make components for 3 companies, 10 companies, 20 companies, but not millions of companies. And the orders are often in larger quantities, and you have fewer orders in a year. So they may be shipping a quantity every month. So you have 12 orders a year or 20 orders a year, but not like millions of orders a year. So the term distribution is generally not used because you have transportation of a few large orders between a supplier and a few customers. So the scale of the issue is much less, the number of parties involved is much less, the number of orders is much less, but the quantities and lot sizes are large. On the other hand, when we look at finished goods, they're distributed from the manufacturer to end customer. So think about a finished good that you buy. Okay, think about maybe bread. Imagine how many customers buy bread daily, like millions of people buy bread. So the number of customers is large. The orders placed, each customer is buying 1 loaf of bread, 2 loaves of bread, maybe 3 loaves of bread, but not like, thousands of loaves of bread. So the quantity is small for each order, but there are many, many orders and many, many customers. So because, and these are B2C transactions, business to customer, or eventually become B2C transactions. So you may have a distributor sending bread to a retail store, which then sells to a customer, but eventually it's a B2C transaction. So here we tend to use the term distribution because distribution tends to imply a large number of customers buying a small quantity each. Okay, so you can say all of this is transportation, that's fine, but the distribution comes with a lot of costs. It's costly to distribute product to many, many customers in small quantities. So that's why we have this special term for this situation. So usually when we say distribution, we're talking about finished goods, part of the supply chain where the finished goods are moving through, and the last part of that has to be B2C, selling to customers usually. But you can also say distribution from like a central warehouse to many retail stores, because then you may have like hundreds of retail stores and so on. So that part of the finished goods movement in the supply chain is distribution. Before the finished goods, we tend to call it inbound logistics, transportation, things like that. So in this lecture, we're going to focus on distribution, the part of the supply chain where you have a finished good and now you have to get it to the customers. Okay, so to study distribution, we first need to learn some key relationships in logistics network design. Okay. One of the key variables in logistics network design is the number of facilities you're going to have. The facilities can be warehouses, retail stores, cross-docks. So, remember we're talking about the finished goods portion of the supply chain, so not talking about supplies necessarily. And so, we will have sources of supply, but then we're looking at, how many distribution-related facilities we need and how many retail stores we need and so on. So it is recommended to understand the relationships between the number of facilities, the logistics cost, and the logistics customer service. Okay. So the relationships we're going to look at is we're going to look at response time, which is when a customer orders something, how quickly can they get it? Also sometimes called order cycle time, because it's the time from placing the order by the customer to the order being fulfilled. Then we're going to look at inventory costs, transportation costs, inbound and outbound, for example, inbound to retail stores and outbound or inbound to distribution centers or regional warehouses and then outbound from them, and facility costs, the cost to operate the facility. Now, distribution is really important, and why we were talking about distribution networks and these relationships, because if you look at it, first of all, it can be a large cost. So in the cement industry in India, the cost of distribution can be about 30% of the total cost, because cement is heavy, it costs a lot to move, it's produced only a few locations, so it has to travel a long distance to go to customers. There's construction happening all over India, so it has to travel long distances and so on. And so it's a significant part of the total cost, and so it's important to optimize it, to study it, to look at it. On the other hand, it's not just a cost. Distribution can be the reason for your success as a business. So the success of 7-Eleven in Japan drives from distribution that provides a high level of responsiveness at a reasonable cost. So 7-Eleven stores are these small stores that you can find in, very convenient places located all over the city in Japan. And they're popular items. You can get them. They're available. They get very frequent deliveries. They can have, food items which are fresh and some very popular items available there. But they don't have all of their SKUs available in the small stores. And then you can order online a larger variety of SKUs, but from the physical stores, which are very convenient in many places, you can pick up the popular items. So their distribution, which is able to give frequent deliveries to keep the food fresh at these small stores, has been the reason behind their success in Japan. Walmart also depends on cost-efficient distribution to keep its prices low. And so because of that, they've been able to gain a large market share in the retail space and be very successful. If you look at Texas Instruments, so Texas Instruments will directly sell to their large customers. So, a small number of their customers account for most of their sales volume, and they sell directly to them because it's large volumes, large shipments. But then they use distributors to sell to a large number of customers who order only small amounts of things from them, smaller quantities, because they don't want to be involved in massive distribution operations that can, in a cost-efficient manner, distribute their products to many, many customers. Because for a distributor who's distributing thousands of products, it's much more cost-effective to have, regional warehouses, their own distribution fleet, and so on. But for Texas Instruments, who only have a few products to sell, it's not as cost-efficient. So they use a distributor to service a large number of customers who order small quantities, and then the large accounts they serve themselves and distribute to the large accounts themselves. And so you can see that distribution is linked to the success of companies and can also be a significant cost that needs to be optimized in some situations. So distribution is all about balancing customer service and cost. So on the customer service side, you have response time. How quickly can you fulfill customer orders? You have product variety. How many different SKUs and different products you have available for the customer? So for example, if you go to discount stores like Costco or Sam's Club, you have less variety available, but the prices are supposed to be cheaper. Whereas if you go to some other store like Walmart, you're going to have maybe a wider variety or a wider range of SKUs and products available. Product availability is part of customer service. So when you want something, is it available, or do you have to wait, or do you just have to go somewhere else because it's not available? Then the customer experience is other aspects of the customer experience. So for example, how easy it is to find the products or to try them or to check them out, especially for complex information scenarios. Let's say you want to get fitted for a suit, and so you have to go and get this fitting done or measurements done and so forth. So that could be part of customer experience. Time to market has to do with, if a new product is launched, how long does it take you to make it available for sale? Okay, and obviously for online retailers like Amazon, it's really fast. They receive stock of the new iPhone in their warehouse and it's available to sale the next minute. Whereas for stores like Walmart or Best Buy, once they receive the goods from Apple's factory or a shipment from overseas, they have to send that product to various warehouses that they have or distribution centers that they have, and then the distribution centers have to send that product to retail stores. And once it receives the retail stores, you have to receive it, you have to unpack the pallet or the cartons, you have to move it to the shelf or move it to some storage area within the store, and only then is it available to sell. So a lot more operations need to happen for retail before a new item is available to sell. Order visibility, especially when you're not picking up the product right away, you're ordering for home delivery or for later pickup. Customers need to be kept up to date with, okay, the order has been placed, can they track the order, when it's going to be ready to pick up, and so on. And then returnability is also important because sometimes the item will not work or will not be compatible with the user, or the user will just not be happy and want to return it. And so how does the return thing happen? That's part of customer service as well. So how we set up distribution will impact all of these aspects of customer service. Now on the cost side, Inventory, it impacts inventory costs because if you have a lot of product variety, for example, you're going to have a lot of inventories to store because you're storing so many different types of products. But if you reduce your product variety, like Sam's Club and Costco do, that can help you to keep your inventory costs down because you only have to store inventory for a few products. Transportation cost is obviously an important major part of the cost. Facility costs, often driven by number of facilities at this size. Information systems investment and cost, that often has to do with you be able to track your orders and be able to order online, for example. That needs a lot of infrastructure and investment in IT. So, whenever we discuss distribution or different types of distribution networks, we can compare them on these aspects of cost and on these aspects of customer service, because different network types are going to be stronger on some of these elements and weaker on the others. So depending on which elements are more important, you need to pick the appropriate type of distribution network. Okay, so before we start talking about different types of distribution networks, we want to understand some key relationships that will help us look at a distribution network and understand whether it's going to have a higher transportation cost than another network, or a lower transportation cost, or a higher inventory cost. How do we determine that? That's going to be based on some key relationships, and you need to understand these key relationships because these are the foundation of everything else we study after that in terms of which types of networks are better at what things. And so this is a really key part of the lecture, so please pay attention. And also this part of the lecture may be tested on exams and so forth, because you would need to understand not just what the relationship is, but why the relationship is the way it is. Okay, you have to understand the why as well. The first relationship we're going to look at is going to be the relationship between the number of facilities and response time to the customer. In this lecture, when we talk about number of facilities, we are talking about facilities where finished goods inventory is stored. So by increasing number of suppliers, you're not increasing number of facilities. By increasing factories, you're not increasing number of facilities for this purpose of this lecture. Here, what we mean by facilities are things like, factories, if they store finished goods inventory, warehouses, distribution centers, retail stores, all of which store finished goods inventory. Okay, so if you look at the graph, as you increase the number of facilities, so you are high on the y-axis, then you go and you look at the curve and you come down, you're going to have a very short response time. So let's say you're here, this is, let's say, a high number of facilities. You go here, this point on the curve, you come down. So a high number of facilities will give you a low response time. Low response time means it's fast response, right? Because your response comes quickly. So this is fast. Okay. And if you reduce the number of facilities, so you have a low number of facilities, like a lower number, then you go on this curve and you see that you end up with a higher response time, which means you respond slowly because it takes you a long time to respond. Higher response time. Okay, which means the response will be slow. Okay, so why is that? Because when you increase the number of facilities which contain finished goods inventory, the way you locate these facilities, you will be getting closer to the customer, because outbound transportation cost is very significant for these facilities. And then you're trying to reduce the outbound transportation cost or total transportation cost. Large part of it is the outbound transportation cost. You will naturally be driven to be closer to the customer, so you are sending deliveries out over a shorter distance to the customer, whether it's home delivery or to retail stores. So as the number of facilities that carry finished goods inventories goes up, the distance to the customer goes down, which allows you to respond quicker. So imagine buying a book off Amazon, which is, maybe it's an old book or a rare book. It's not in their regional distribution center. It's going to take 3 days, 4 days for it to arrive. Versus if the same book is available in Barnes & Noble store, which is in your neighborhood, you can just go and get it in 2-3 hours. So how was Barnes & Noble's store able to give you a faster response time than Amazon? By having a lot of retail stores that Amazon does not have. So it has a lot more facilities, number of facilities, that reduce the response time by being very close to the customer. Okay. Similarly, you can compare a central national book repository or distribution center, which is in the middle of the country somewhere, versus a book that's available in the Amazon's regional distribution center, which is in your state. Amazon might give you next day delivery on Prime or something like that, whereas the central book repository or national distribution center may take 5 business days to ship the book to you. Again, having regional distribution centers in every state by Amazon, and if they store that book in those regional distribution centers, they're able to give you next day delivery, or in some cases same day delivery, whereas one central warehouse will give you like 5 business days delivery. So this is the idea that as you increase the number of facilities that carry finished goods inventory, you shorten the distance to the end customer, and you're able to provide faster response, which means lower response time, right? Because low response time is faster. Now let's look at inventory costs and number of facilities. If you increase the number of facilities which carry finished goods, your inventory costs will go up. Okay, so when you increase the number of facilities that are going to be storing your finished goods inventory, your inventory level on average for any product will go up. So every location where you want the item to be available needs to have at least 1 unit of that SKU or product. So if you have 50 regional distribution centers, you need at least 50 units in them. Whereas if it's a very slow selling SKU, the annual demand may be only 20. But because you want to store this SKU in every single location, you need at least 50 of them. So usually, the demand at each location may be highly variable. Sometimes you sell a few, sometimes you sell nothing. And so if you want to serve that demand from a close by location, that location has to have some safety stock to handle the variability in demand. And so when you do that for every location, you end up with a lot of safety stock and a lot of stock in the system, a lot of inventory in the system. But if you were to centralize the inventory to a few places, that means have less facilities, at least for the purpose of this product, because this product only exists in a few locations. So if you were to do that for this product, centralize inventory of this product to a few facilities, the inventory level will drop, because when you aggregate demand from different regions to be served by one distribution centers, sometimes demand is high here but low here, so the highs and lows cancel out, and so the aggregated demand tends to have less variability and requires less safety stock. So remember this rule: whenever you centralize inventory and aggregate demand, so this centralized inventory is going to serve a lot of demand, you're going to have less safety stock because you're going to need less safety stock with less variability in demand. Okay, and this is called the risk pooling effect. So the uncertainty in demand is the risk part. Okay, and when you pool demand or aggregate demand, the uncertainty or the variability goes down. This is why you don't see a lot of variability in a country's GDP, but you see a lot more variability in a company's sales, and even more variability in the sales of a particular store within that company. So the higher the aggregation level, the less the variability tends to be. Also, centralization will shorten your lead times from suppliers, because your centralized facilities will tend to be closer to the supplier because they're not very close to the customer. And that's what will happen on the average. Like, there could be exceptions, but usually that's what will end up happening. And then if you have a large number of facilities, they'll tend to be closer to the customer and further from the supplier. So reduced lead time also affects your safety stock levels, and you'll have less inventory. The square root law approximates this relationship, which we're going to study next, which will talk about, okay, how do we figure out what's the impact on inventory as we change the number of facilities. And the square root law comes from the graph shown on the picture, because this curve is, if this is x, this axis is x, then if you plot square root of x, for any value of x, you take the square root takes a similar curve. Maybe not exactly that, but close enough. So the square root curve tends to approximate this curve on inventory cost, and you can call this inventory levels too, because inventory cost is a function of inventory levels. So inventory levels and inventory costs are correlated. They move in the same way, right? So inventory levels or inventory costs, they're going to have this curvy relationship in number of facilities, and it's approximated by the square root. So if you have X facilities versus X2 versus X1, so how is that different? Well, that difference is based on the square root, okay? And we'll talk about how to approximate that shortly. Okay. Consolidation of inventory also has the benefit of increasing your inventory turns. And you'll see that if you look at the inventory turns of something like Barnes & Nobles with many retail stores, they have fewer inventory turns than something like Amazon, where they can centralize inventory of slow-moving SKUs. So Amazon will not store slow-moving SKUs in regional DCs and offer them for prime next-day delivery. They'll only do that with fast-selling SKUs. For SKUs that sell intermittently, like or slow-moving SKUs, they'll centralize the inventory. And that helps them keep the high inventory turns overall because they don't let inventory blow up by storing slow-moving SKUs in many, many different locations. Okay, so this is the first version of the square root law. We're going to do two versions, but the second version is just derived of this version. And so IT is the total amount of inventory after consolidation to one central location. I of I, capital I of small I, this right here, is the amount of inventory at a particular location, on the average location. On average, this is the inventory you have on in a particular distribution center or retail store or warehouse. So at one of the locations. And N is the number of locations. So if you have inventory in N locations, and each location has on average I of I inventory, if you were to consolidate these N inventory points into one central inventory location, then the central location will have an inventory of IT. And the point to notice is that IT is less than II multiplied by N. So this is the current total inventory, because each location has Is of I. You have N locations, N times Is of I is going to be a total inventory currently. So this is the current total inventory. And if you centralize, you need less inventory. So the IT is the inventory you get after centralization. This is centralized inventory. So if you centralize inventory in one place, you get I of T inventory. This could be in units. If I of I is in units, or it could be dollars. So you could take inventory value in dollars, you could take inventory in units. The relationship works approximately for both. Okay, so centralized inventory IT is going to be less than the decentralized inventory II, which is decentralized across N locations, is in N locations. Exactly how much is going to be IT? IT is approximately going to be II times square root of N. And this number is less than II times N. So you get a reduction in inventory by centralizing. Okay, so there's some assumptions. Inventory is comparable across locations. Variability in demand across locations is comparable. You're using some reorder point type of policy. And then the demand is independent at the different locations. If demand is correlated, you could be a little bit off here, and you can still work it out even if demand is correlated, but then it may not be as simple as the simple formula. And the easy way to do that is, if demand is correlated, is to take historical data and then aggregate the demand, and then figure out for this aggregated demand, what is the inventory you need in a central location, because central location inventory has to meet all of the demand, the aggregate demand. And then you can figure out, what is your estimate for the centralized inventory by aggregating the demand. Let's do an example. Suppose there is $1 million of inventory at 3 stocking points. So we have 3 locations with inventory. Each location has an average of 1 million of inventory. So total we'll have 3 times 1, or 3 million of inventory. So total inventory in the system is 3 million, which is 1 million at location A, 1 million at location B, 1 million at location C. Okay. if we were to consolidate from these three locations, A, B, C, into one centralized location, how much inventory will we expect to have? Well, the total in centralized inventory is going to be the inventory at each location, which is 1 million, times square root of n, which is square root of 3, to get 1.7 million. So look at our massive inventory reduction. In the old system with three locations, this was our total inventory, 3 million. Okay, and when we centralized inventory, we went down to a little bit over a half. So not exactly half, but a little bit over a half. Okay, so that is going from 3 warehouses or 3 distribution centers to 1 warehouse or 1 distribution center. Okay, that's the reduction in inventory. Now, what if we said, well, we don't want to go down to 1 from 3 to 1, we want to go down to 2 from 3 to 2. So what you can do is if you want to go down to 3 to some other number than 1, you go down to 1, and then from 1 you go back up to 2. Because our formula only links n and 1, n locations with 1 location. It doesn't link like n, like 3 locations with 2 locations. It links 3 with 1 or 2 with 1. So once you have I of t for this particular demand for at 3 locations, you had inventory of 1 million each, and you centralized it. Now the centralized inventory of 1.7, now you can take it, what would it be if you went to 2 locations? Okay, so how's that? I of t, we know, equals I of I times square root of n. We know the total inventory is 1732051, right? This number. Okay, we don't know what the inventory at each location is, but we know we have 2 locations, square root of 2. So you can do this. Then you divide both sides by square root of 2. Okay, so this cancels out into 1. So you get I of I equals 1732051 over square root of 2. And when you do that, you get that if you have 2 locations, each location will have 1.2 million in inventory. For a total system inventory of 2.449 million, about 2.5 million. So if you go from 3 to 2 locations, you drop inventory levels a little bit, from 3 million to about 2.5. But if you go from 3 to 1, the inventory level drops much more, because you go from 3 million to 1.7 million. Okay? So the relationship is non-linear, and that's why it's called a square root law. Square root is a non-linear relationship. Okay? But here we can see that you can go from n locations to 1 location, or n locations to some other number of locations, but you go to 1, get I of t, and then go to the different number of locations. Now these 2 steps can be done in one go. You can go from 3 to 2 directly by using a second version of the formula. Okay, let's look at that. So in this second version of the formula, you have n 2 locations to start with. This is your starting. N1. N1 is your starting locations, N1. That's what you have currently. And you want to go to n2 locations. So in the example we just did, this starting location would be like 3, and then this is your target locations, how many you want to have, and this could be something like 2, or there could be 1. And then the I1 and I2 here is total system level inventory. It's not the inventory that is in one location. There's the total inventory across all of the N1 or N2 locations. Okay. If you want to calculate I of I, which is how much inventory is there in each location, then you can do that by doing I1 over N1. That will be inventory in each location when you have N1 locations, and I in the new setup will be I2 over N2. When you get to N2 locations with I2 total inventory over N2 will be the I of I. So this I2 and I1, don't confuse it with this I of I. It's not I of I, because I of I is inventory in one location. This I1 and I2 is more akin to the IT, the total inventory, because I1 is total inventory in N1 locations, I2 is total inventory in N2 locations. So anyway, when you want to go from 3 to 2 locations, okay, N1 will be 3, so we'll put in 3 here, that's our starting location. N2 will be 2, that's our target location. I1 will be 3 million, that's the total inventory we start with. So you put 3 million times 2 over 3 square root, and you get 2.449 million. Going from 3 to 2 locations will take inventory from 3 million to 2.449 million. And this is exactly what we got in the last part as well, doing a two-step process. But here we can do it in one step very easily. This is an important calculation because you can quickly estimate, how your inventory will change when you change the number of locations. So you should be able to do this sort of calculation or this sort of calculation. Okay, now let's look at transportation costs and the number of facilities. So inbound transportation cost per unit tend to be lower than outbound transportation cost because inbound transportation cost will often benefit from economies of scale. When you're shipping something to a distribution center or a retail store, you're often shipping truckloads. Like you don't ship just one pallet to a big DC. Even if you need just one pallet of one product, you fill the rest of the truck with other products. So the distribution center may carry thousands of products. So it's very easy to fill up a whole truck at least with 2 or 3 products from close by suppliers and send the whole truck over to a distribution center. Or you get a full container from the port from overseas and then you ship the full container to a distribution center. So for a distribution center, for a warehouse, even for retail stores, unless you have a few stores close by, you may have a truck come deliver some pallets to each store. But if you have a store kind of like far off, you might just fill up a whole truck mixed with different products and send it to that store. So often the incoming shipments to retail stores and distribution centers are either truckload or close to truckload. It's efficient because the lot sizes are large. Even if one product is a small quantity, you can fill up the truck or a container with multiple products. But when you're going outbound, when you are shipping from distribution centers to customer homes, or you're selling or you're delivering from retail stores to customer homes, or customers are picking up, the outbound side of the transportation, you often are not able to benefit from the economies of scale to the same extent. Especially shipments to customer homes. They're very costly because you're often shipping a very small quantity to each customer homes, and customers live all over the place and you have to go to many different destinations. Okay, so the large number of facilities means that outbound distance to customer is small, okay, but you end up paying a higher rate, like per mile, per kilogram, or per mile, percent weight. Your rate is higher, but if your distance you have to cover is smaller, then your outbound cost may not be very high. But if you have to cover a longer distance and the rate is higher, then your cost can be very high. Okay? So that is why initially the transportation costs decline with the number of facilities. Why? Because as the number of facilities goes up, your outbound distance to customers' homes decreases. Okay, so let me give you a comparison on the graph. So let's compare this one with this one. So here you have N2 facilities, N2, which is a bigger number, and here you have N1 facilities, which is a smaller number. So let's compare what happens in N1 versus N2. If you go from N1 to N2 facilities, your average outbound travel distance will decrease. Okay, average outbound travel distance. Because you are now closer to the customer. Like when you expand the number of facilities, on average, you're closer to the customer. Okay, so when your average distance to the customer decreases, your outbound transportation cost goes down. Outbound transportation cost, T cost, goes down. Now, what about the inbound side? Well, inbound cost may not increase much because N2 facilities are not that many that you have no economies of scale on the inbound side. You may still be able to have economies of scale relatively on the inbound side, even the number of facilities is larger now. And so if the inbound cost doesn't go up by a lot because you still have economies of scale there, and the outbound cost goes down, the total cost will go down. So this is total cost 1, T1, and this is total cost T2, right? So T2 is going to be less than T1. Why? Because you have a big reduction in outbound cost that drove T2 down. Okay, the total transportation cost down. But when you keep increasing the number of facilities, you're going to reach a point where the inbound economies of scale break. So they have so many facilities that even the inbound transportation, you're shipping less than truckload, or you're shipping for over long distances, where facilities are all over the place. So inbound economies of scale eventually will break as you keep increasing the number of facilities. And on the outbound side, you're already close to the customer. You're getting a little bit more closer, but the advantage is not as significant to make up for the breakage in inbound economies of scale. So when inbound economies of scale break, your transportation cost starts to increase as you increase number of facilities. So two things to remember. Number one, increasing number of facilities can drive down your total transportation costs, but it doesn't hold forever. After a certain point is reached, either your transportation cost will become flat, it will no longer go down, or it will start to go up. One of these two things will happen. Okay. So transportation cost goes down with the number of facilities because of savings on the outbound side, but eventually the inbound economies of scale will break and it will flatten out the curve, or the curve will start going up. Now, this is really easy to understand. Facility cost with number of facilities. The more facilities you have, the more facility costs you'll have, because two facilities, even if they're half the size each, so you have one mega facility versus two smaller facilities, the two smaller facilities, which have half the volume of the bigger facilities, are going to be more expensive to run than one large facility. Why? Because some costs are not repeated when you have one facility. So one facility may have just one general manager, whereas two smaller facilities may have two general managers. Okay, then you may need to have, let's say, 10 forklift trucks in a large facility. Okay, but in a small facility, it may not be 5 and 5, because to handle for each smaller facility, you may need 6 and 6 forklift trucks, and so on. So also in terms of real estate cost or property taxes, utilities and rent, it's not linear. It's not if you have two smaller facilities of half the size each, that your rent will be half in each case, or the property tax will be half in each case, or utilities will be half. Because when you take two facilities and you combine them into, and you compare them to one facility of equivalent size to both of them, it's larger. The rental cost, the property taxes, the utilities, they don't double when you double the size of a facility. They increase by less than the double. So you have economies of scale when you have a fewer larger facilities versus you have many smaller facilities. So the number of facilities increases, your total facility cost will go up. Okay. And you can see that by looking at revenue per dollar invested in facilities. On the financial statements of companies, you have this line called property, plant, and equipment, which tells you how much money they invested in facilities, essentially, and equipment in the facilities. And if you look at revenue over property, plant, and equipment, Amazon, for example, is earning a lot more revenue per dollar invested in facilities than Barnes & Noble, because Amazon has fewer facilities than Barnes & Noble. Amazon has a lot of distribution centers, but much less than the number of retail stores Barnes & Noble used to have. And so you can see this efficiency in facility cost if you have fewer large facilities versus many small facilities. Many small facilities tend to have a larger total cost than fewer small facilities. This is usually pretty straightforward to understand this part. So when we combine all of these costs, okay, we get this U-shaped curve for total logistics cost. And this one. What it means is if you have too few facilities, okay, your facility cost will be small, but your transportation cost will dominate. Inventory cost would be small with too few facilities. Facility cost will be small, but transportation cost will be very high. So transportation cost will dominate and give you a high total cost. So your total cost will be high because of high transportation costs. And if you have too many facilities, okay, your transportation costs may not be very, may have reduced, at least per unit. We mean, per unit your transportation costs may have reduced, or total transportation cost to support a certain volume, the same total volume would have fallen because you have less outbound costs, because you have many facilities, you're close to the customer, but your inventory costs and facility costs would have increased so much that they would still give you a high total cost. So here, with too few facilities, the cost was high because of transportation. But with too many facilities, the cost is going to be high because of inventory and facility costs. So you can see this trade-off. There's a trade-off between transportation costs and inventory and facility costs. Too few facilities, transportation cost is too high. Too many facilities, inventory and facility costs are too high. So overall, your total cost becomes too high, whether you have too few or too many. So you want to be somewhere in the sweet spot, in the middle, which is somewhere here. So you don't have to, you don't have to find this optimal point, this n star optimal point. You just have to get close to it, because the cost curve is relatively flat around the optimal point. So whether you land here or you land here, you're going to have total cost very close to the optimal point. So you have to be approximately close to the optimal, not exactly at the optimal necessarily. And then you'll have low total logistics costs. Okay. Now, what you also have to remember is, this is just looking at the cost picture, the total cost curve. You also look at the response time picture, because some customers, are willing to pay extra, and you may have extra revenue if you have low response time. So the response time does decrease the more facilities you have. You can react faster. You can give the customer what they ordered faster. So that is an advantage. But, you also have to factor in that beyond a certain response time, the customer stops caring. So if you can get same day delivery, for example, then going from same day to 4-hour delivery, the customer may not care. They're happy with same day. They don't want to pay extra for faster than same day delivery. Maybe up to same day, they're okay paying some amount because they value same day delivery or next day delivery, but they don't want to pay anything shorter than that because they don't really need a shorter delivery time. Or let's say the customers will value 4-hour delivery, but going to 1-hour delivery, they don't want to pay anything extra. It doesn't give them any extra value. So response time stops mattering a lot once it's reduced to a reasonable level. And so you also have to factor that in, right? So you have to look at the service side, what response side is your target, and then you have to look at the total cost side, and then, kind of balance those things and figure out how many facilities you need. Okay. So that's it for these relationships. And next, we're going to talk about different types of distribution networks. For each type of network, we'll look at these relationships. How many facilities are we having in this distribution network? A lot or fewer? And then what are the implications for transportation costs, inventory costs, facility costs, and these sorts of questions. So we'll be looking at 5 generic types of logistics networks, and in the end, we'll talk about how some companies will combine more than one of these generic types, because companies can segment. They can say, okay, these are fast-moving products with stable demand. With this type of network is good for them, but then they'll not use some of those facilities for slow-moving product. They might centralize the slow-moving product, and so they may have a little bit different network within their overall broader network for other types of products. So you will, these 5 types are these generic types, but you might see combinations or modifications of them in real life. The first type is the simplest, because you have manufacturers and you have customers and nothing in between. So it's also called drop shipping, where manufacturers ship directly to customers. There was actually some thought that as the internet allows us to look at customer reviews, look at pictures of the product, look at videos of the product, and if there are free returns, we don't have any risk. We can order the product. If we don't like it, we can return it. So there was this thought that retail is dead. You'll just have manufacturers selling directly to customers, and as package carriers like DHL, UPS, postal services, they get more efficient. It's not going to cost too much to ship packages from manufacturers to customers. And if shipping is efficient and the internet, it's easy to set up an online store, the internet allows manufacturers to sell directly to customers. This is what shopping is going to be like. You just go to Nike.com or whatever website of the manufacturer, and you order product from that manufacturer. However, that's not played out. You'll understand more why, because you can see the value retailers add as we discuss these types of logistics networks. In this picture, we do have a retailer, but the retailer does nothing except move information around. So the retailer could be a very well-designed app or website where they like Amazon's app. or Amazon's website. But the difference is Amazon has their own logistics infrastructure. Here, the retailer has no logistics infrastructure. It's kind of like eBay, where they are the website and perhaps the payment infrastructure to move digital payments, but they don't touch the physical product. They never take possession of the physical product. They never touch or move the physical products. So where does finished goods inventory live? It lives at the manufacturers. So every manufacturer is going to have some finished goods inventory. And when customers place an order to the retailer relays the order to the manufacturers. A customer may order 10 things from 10 different manufacturers in one order, and the retailer will split the order and send the relevant bits to each manufacturer. Then each manufacturer will ship their portion of the order, their product, directly to the customer. So if you as a customer order 10 items from 10 different manufacturers, you get 10 shipments, one from each manufacturer. In this type of network, you have the maximum inventory centralization, because every single product that flows on this network has only one place in the network where its finished goods inventory lives. So if we're talking about Nike shoes, all the finished goods of Nike shoes, all Nike shoes live in Nike's manufacturing facility. Maybe there's an attached warehouse, maybe they have some space in it to store the finished goods inventory. Okay. So there's no other place anywhere in the network, no other manufacturer, there's no distributors, there's no warehouses, there's no other place in the network where Nike finished goods inventory exists. So you have the maximum inventory centralization, because for any given product, there's only one place the inventory exists. When you have maximum inventory centralization, your inventory costs are going to be the lowest in this network. Now, because if you remember earlier lectures, you know there's an inventory transportation trade-off. So we do expect, if we have minimized the inventory costs, we do expect to have higher transportation costs. So how are transportation costs higher in this network? First of all, manufacturers and customers are likely going to be far apart, because manufacturer may have one facility that makes product for all of North America and Europe, or the whole world, or just all of North America. And customers in North America will be all over the continent. So many customers will be very far from the manufacturing facility. So product is going to move long distances in small units, because each customer will order one pair of shoes or two pair of shoes. And so you're shipping these packages with very few items in them, very few quantity in them, over long distances, which is a recipe for high transportation costs, right? Because you're not taking advantage of any economies of scale. You're not sending truckloads for most of the long part of the distance, then maybe breaking up the truckload near the customer or things like that. You're not doing any of that. All of the distance between manufacturer and customer is traversed in small packages carrying 1 or 2 units. So many shipments, each shipment is very small, recipe for high transportation costs. So this option is kind of like one extreme of the network, where inventory costs are minimized, but transportation costs are kind of like maximized. Okay. This is a possibility. Now the retailer, it doesn't make a difference if you have one retailer which is collecting the customer demand and then passing it on to the manufacturers, or if each manufacturer has their own online website. Either way, it's the same network, because the product flows happen the same way, just that the information flows change a little bit, because people don't place the order with the retailer, they place it directly with the manufacturer's website. Okay. So this sort of network would work well where you really want to focus on minimizing inventory costs. Because remember, this network is good for minimizing inventory costs, not good for transportation costs. So sometimes this is done by companies for very slow moving product with unpredictable demand. Okay, so let's say Amazon sells many books, including books that are rare or bought by very few people. So Amazon will not store inventory of those rare or very slow selling books in their warehouses, they will just pass on the order they receive for that book to the manufacturer, the publisher. The publisher will print the book on demand, just print one copy or two copies as was ordered, and ship the book from their printer to the customer directly. So this does happen in real life for certain slow-moving products where companies like Amazon or Walmart or online booksellers will pass on the demand to publishers who will then print a copy of the book for the customer, pack it, and ship it by postal service to the customer because it's not worth it to keep inventory of that book in warehouses because it just sells so little and so rarely. I mean, the book may be purchased, a few copies may sell in months, and the total sales over a year might be just a few 10, 12 copies of a book. Because there's many, many millions of books, the total sales may be very high for the publisher. They're selling thousands and thousands of books, but for some particular titles, they're only selling like 10 copies or 5 copies or so on, right? Just very slow moving titles. This would make sense. You don't want to have inventory in many different warehouses for them. So Nordstrom uses this model for slow moving products. They don't keep inventory in their retail stores or warehouses. They just pass the order to the manufacturer. Manufacturer ships directly to customer. eBags holds few items in inventory, uses drop shipping, which is this network for the rest. Drop shipping is a very common term in retail. So, hopefully you understand now what drop shipping means. Manufacturer ships directly to the customer. And either the manufacturer takes the order directly as well from their website or the retailer passes the order to them. This is mostly used for very slow moving items for where it doesn't make sense to store their inventory in many different warehouses. So we already talked about this, but this is a summary, so I'll go over these slides quickly. Okay, inventory has very low cost because of aggregation. Benefits of aggregation are highest for low demand, high value items. Transportation, higher transportation costs because of increased distance and disaggregate shipping. Lower facility costs because the only facility you need is the manufacturer, which is already there. You have to have a facility to manufacture the goods. You don't need any additional facilities. You have 0 facilities in the middle between manufacturer and customer. So this will be very low. So notice this type of network, drop shipping, is minimizing facility and inventory cost, but doing poorly on transportation cost. You do need significant investment in information infrastructure to make sure the customers can track their orders, see which manufacturer has shipped, where it is, things like that, make payments, see product pictures, customer reviews on a website. So all of that requires IT infrastructure and investment. In terms of customer service, the response time is going to be high because the manufacturer is usually far away from many customers. So it's going to take a long time to get the shipment. But the product variety can be very high because there's so little inventory cost in this setup that you can afford to offer rare items which sell very infrequently. Product availability is also easy to provide a high level of product availability because your inventory costs are so low due to centralization. You can always keep a little bit of safety stock if you want to. But and instead the manufacturer can always manufacture it as after getting the customer order too. So product availability is going to be very high. Manufacturer, if they're out of stock, will just make the item. Customer experience can be, it kind of depends, I guess, on the customer. But if the item is not available in traditional retail, the customer would be happy they can get it through drop shipping. So in terms of home delivery, the customer experience is good because customer doesn't have to leave their home to get the item. They don't have to go stand in Walmart lines or something like that. Okay. But it can be bad because the response time is long. And if the customer cares about the response time, they're not going to be very happy. Time to market for new product. Remember, time to market is a metric that applies to new products. That's going to be really high because as soon as the manufacturer has 1 unit produced of a new product, they can open the website for sales, start taking orders, right? And the second unit is under production, third unit is under production, and so on. Order visibility is more involved because one order, if there's a retailer involved, like an online website involved, you may place one order that gets split across 3 or 4 manufacturers because different items are produced by different manufacturers. And so when you go to track your order, you will see different tracking estimated times of arrivals. Part of your order may be coming next week, part of it may be coming this week. And returnability is really where this becomes difficult, because as a customer, if you want to return the item, you have to ship it to the manufacturer. So the address you ship it to is going to depend on which item you want to return. And then you have to package it and go take it to the postal office and kind of ship it back. You may have to cover the cost of shipment back to the manufacturer. Some manufacturers will charge a fee because they have to inspect the item and put it back in the shelf, or sell it in a discounted channel, or discard if it's damaged or whatever, right? So they have to do some processing. So there might be a restocking fee, as manufacturers like to call it, and then you may have to pay for the shipment back. So returnability is not a strong suit. Okay, so the second type of network is basically the same as the first type, like drop shipping, but we're doing in-transit merge to improve the customer experience so they get their whole order as one shipment instead of many different shipments from different manufacturers. So Apple uses this setup to add accessories that a customer has ordered to their laptops or iPads, because their laptops, iPads come from a different source, accessories are stored in a different place, and so they are both sent to a merge facility where customer orders are completed, accessories are put together with the other stuff, and then the final order is shipped to the customer. Now, if obviously, if these manufacturers are getting many different customer orders, and they're going to use the same merge facility or a few merge facilities for most of those orders, then it is possible to get some economies of scale on the transportation coming into the merge facility. But from the merge facility on, it'll be same package carriers, FedEx, UPS, DHL, things like that. And so it operates exactly like number one, with a few exceptions. Number one, we're improving customer service by giving the customer one shipment per order instead of having multiple goods from different manufacturers arrive in multiple shipments. Number two, we are reducing the transportation expense a little bit by having some economies of scale on the manufacturer to the in-transit merge facility. Okay. And three, because now we have to pay for the in-transit merge facility, our facility costs are going up a little bit. We're trading off facility cost with transportation cost, putting a facility down, increasing our facility cost, but getting some economies of scale on transportation for part of the journey and reducing our transportation expense a little bit. The inventory situation stays the same. Everything else stays the same. Okay. So I'm not gonna repeat this and this. You can read these two slides on your own, because they're basically, everything is similar to drop shipping except the few points I mentioned, and so it's just an extension of drop shipping. Now the third one is the traditional distributor network, where you had distributors that ran warehouses where they stored finished goods inventory. So the difference between here and the in-transit merge does not store finished goods inventory. It may store it only for a few hours. Trucks arrive and then it's packing those customer orders together. So for a few hours or one shift, the stuff is there, but just immediately gets shipped out. Okay. Whereas here, the distributor has warehouses in between the manufacturers and the customers, where finished goods inventory is actually stored. Okay, so inventory is held in warehouses or distribution centers, and these could be run by some retail company or by some distributor company. Okay, but there's actually finished goods inventory here. So now we see a big change. We have finished goods inventory in more than one location, not just at the manufacturer. Manufacturer may or may not have finished goods inventory. They may just produce when they get an order. But we have moved finished goods inventory to multiple locations. It's not going to be just one warehouse. This is just picture showing you one warehouse, because I'm just showing you 3 customers. But in practice, there will be like different warehouses serving different geographic regions. So now you have inventory in different, finished goods inventory in different locations at distribution centers. And potentially also some finished goods inventory at the manufacturer. Now, what has changed? So first of all, the inventory cost will go up because you have finished goods inventory at multiple sites, but your response time will go down because now inventory is closer to the customer. So you've in a way traded off inventory cost with response time. You've increased your inventories, but you're giving the customer faster response. You've also traded off inventory costs with transportation costs because from the manufacturers to the warehouses, you can send full truckloads and take advantage of economies of scale in transportation. You can get a long-term contract with the carrier, say, hey, we're going to ship a truckload every week or every month from here to here. And so you can have long-term contracts, which might give you some discount. You might be shipping full truckloads for all these reasons, for all these economies of scale type reasons. Your transportation cost per unit will go down in the journey from the manufacturer to the distribution centers. And from the distribution centers to customers, it's still being sent by package carriers. So you're still shipping it by UPS or FedEx, or maybe your own package delivery system like Amazon. They have their own delivery vans which deliver packets. Okay. So in a way, Amazon does a version of that where they have two stages of their intermediate distribution centers. They have some large centralized distribution centers which will store slow-moving product, which will get moved only when an order is placed for them. And then they'll have smaller regional distribution centers for fast-moving products, especially products that are supported for Prime, for next day or same day Prime delivery. Okay. And so from the smaller local distribution centers or the larger central distribution centers, from the larger distribution center, they may use a package carrier to send you that product, or they may send it to a local distribution center where it gets combined with other items you ordered and gets sent to you. Or if you part of your order is Prime eligible, it may get delivered first, and then the slow moving item you ordered from the centralized distribution center will come to you later. So if we analyze this network, we see that the inventory cost is going to be higher, okay, because you have inventory in multiple locations now, finished goods inventory. For fast moving items, it's not, with stable demand, I should add, it's not a big issue because your inventory doesn't stay in the warehouse for a long time. So the shorter time is spent in the warehouse, the less your inventory cost will be. And so it's not a big deal for fast moving items with stable demand week after week. But for slow moving items, the inventory costs could add up fast. Transportation, again, you can do TL shipments from manufacturer to DC. So you're going to reduce your transportation costs on that part of the journey. And then you're doing the expensive transportation for a smaller part of the journey from distribution centers to customers. Higher facilities costs, obviously you're running all these distribution centers. And, because most of the items you're shipping to the customer are already in a distribution center, you don't need to coordinate shipments from multiple manufacturers to put together a customer order. So it's a little bit of a simpler coordination task. But you'll still need, customer order tracking options and some IT systems for the customers to pass on the order to you and for you to track the order. Response time is going to be faster. Product variety will be lower because when you are storing inventory at the distribution center, it gets quite expensive to store every single product out there, which is like, you have a long tail of slow moving SKUs. And so you're probably not going to store every single SKU in those distribution centers. So the product variety that's available for quick ordering from distribution centers is going to be lower than the variety of products you can order directly from manufacturers, because not every single product that can be ordered is going to be in the DC, distribution center. Customer experience is a little bit better because you have the order integrity. Entire order will probably come as one shipment. Time to market is a little bit worse, which means higher, takes longer. Higher in this case means worse because time being higher means it takes longer. Because you have to fill up all the DCs with stock available before you can start selling. Returnability is easier because you don't have, if you ordered 5 items and you're returning 2 of them, you don't have to make 2 shipments to 2 different manufacturers. You just make one return shipment to the DC instead of 2 separate shipments to the manufacturers. Okay, so number 4 is very similar to number 3. Okay, so in both cases, we added warehouses or distributors in the middle. Okay, but what's different is in number 3, we sent the packages by UPS or FedEx or our own package delivery service. But we are. It's usually the distance is kind of long. It's not that the truck can leave here in the morning, deliver many packages to customers around the warehouse and come back. Usually these distribution centers are a little bit further from the customer, so you can't do like a milk run type of drop off with your own smaller trucks or something like that. You're gonna have to use like a package carrier or some service to send the package to the customer. So you're doing shipping packages to the customer from a few large warehouses in the country. Okay, whereas here you'll likely have more warehouses closer to the customer, and now a truck can go and deliver packages or product to a series of customers and then come back same day to the DC. So in 8 to 10 hours of a working shift, a truck will leave the DC, make multiple stops, deliver product, and come back. And the multiple stop will be at different customer homes. So here it's more like the distribution is being done by the distributor, whoever owns this warehouse. Whereas in number 3, you're just shipping packages using package shippers like FedEx, like UPS. Okay. This number 4 is exactly how Amazon Prime works. So you have close by DCs with Amazon Prime products. And then when you order by Amazon Prime, the Amazon trucks leave multiple times a day sometimes to do different trips. And they do a trip, they drop off the package and come back to the Amazon distribution center. Another popular case this thing is used is appliance delivery. So sometimes you go to a showroom, you order an appliance or online, and then from a local close by distribution center, a truck loads up the appliances that people have ordered and drives around delivering and installing the appliances at customer homes. Okay, so what will happen? Because these distribution centers now need to be close to the customer, because you have to be able to go out on your truck, make multiple deliveries and return the same day in one working shift, they have to be very close to the customer, right? You're basically doing deliveries within like a 50 to 100 mile radius around the distribution center. So you really need to have lots of these DCs to cover a geographic region. Maybe maximum you are traveling like 100 miles to the first customer's home, but usually less. And so you have a lot more distribution centers than number 3, okay? And if you can, but your outbound transportation cost per unit might be less because you're not using like a carrier service, you're using a truck that's doing these efficient routes, you're doing some routing here that you've studied previously, and you have a truck doing efficient routing and doing these routes and delivering or picking up multiple customer orders in one trip. Okay. Now, obviously, this can be expensive if the customer orders something very small. For a low value item, let's say you ordered a USB thumb drive, a USB drive, which was like $15, and a truck had to go and drop off some thumb drives to different homes and come back. That's going to be very expensive. But it makes sense if you're shipping high value items like appliances, furniture, and so on, where the customer order is for, let's say, a mattress which costs $800. Now it makes sense for a truck to load up like 10, 15, 20 mattresses and do 10 or 15 drop-offs in a day and come back, because they just drop off like $15,000 worth of product. And so even if the whole day's trip with 2 employees in a truck cost a few $100s, it's still worth it because the revenue generated was $15,000, right? But it's not worth it if you're dropping off $15 USB drives and then coming back after dropping off like 10 or 15 of them. because then you dropped off product worth like $250 and you spend maybe $400 to do this whole round robin trip, because you have to pay the employees, you have to pay the truck and all of that, right? And so it depends on the value of the item, the size of the customer order, and so forth. So here's the main difference right here between 3 and 4. Okay, unlike carrier delivery, the storage facility has to be much closer to the customer to be able to do this round robin trip. Okay, this milk run to drop off. So that's why furniture and appliance retailers, this is a very common case for them where they do this sort of a distribution network. Okay, you can't be shipping, I mean, you can be, you may be shipping your appliances long distance to get them to these DCs, but for the final customer delivery, it's usually, you know, a milk run like that, which is from a close by storage point, distribution center. Automotive parts, another excellent example of this. So when you take your car to be fixed, you go to a repair shop, a car repair shop. Okay, the car repair shop will have some common items like they can change an oil filter. They have oil filters in stock usually. They may have some brake pads in stock. But a car is made up of many parts, thousands of parts. And these small repair shops cannot have thousands of parts in inventory. And that's thousands of parts per manufacturer, like thousands of parts for GM, thousands of parts for Toyota, thousands of parts for Ford. Like imagine for every different manufacturer, they have to have thousands of parts. It's impossible. These repair shops can't keep those parts in stock. Okay, so these customers are these repair shops, car repair shops. Okay, Discount Tire, Bell Tire, what have you, other, you know, independent car mechanic shops. These are these customers, and then they are given parts by distributors who store a lot of parts. Okay, like O'Reilly Parts or other distributors of car parts. They have warehouses where they, you know, in many locations where the warehouses store thousands and thousands of parts. And then these repair shops order from these distribution centers or warehouses. And then they have these small trucks going around the whole day, going around doing a round robin trip, coming back, going around doing a trip. And they drop off the parts that the repair shops need for that day. So when the repair shop gets cars in a day, they say, okay, or maybe they know beforehand which cars they're going to fix tomorrow because it's by appointment, but they could have like walk-ins too. Then they, you know, call up, or in the IT system, they place an order for those parts. And often the distributor will say, okay, I'll deliver to you the parts in 2 to 4 hours of your ordering, because they're close by, they're like 20 miles away, and they can just load up their truck and go around, do a trip, drop off parts at different repair shops, come back, do another trip, come back, and so on. So it's commonly used in the automotive, you know, parts distribution for repair shops. Also dealerships also fix stuff and do repairs, so dealerships as well. Okay. So the main differences between 3 and 4 are you're going to have more locations. The facility cost will go up. Because you have more locations, your inventory costs will go up, but your transportation costs will go down. Because you can still maintain economies of scale to these distributors. So this part is okay. You know, from manufacturer to these DCs, you have like truckloads coming in. And then here you're doing efficient routes where each truck that goes out makes multiple stops before it comes back. And multiple stops that are not too far apart. These multiple stops are close by. So they go out, they hit a bunch of stops, come back quickly. And so the whole operation in terms of transportation is pretty well optimized, but you have higher inventory costs and higher facility costs. Okay. So inventory is going to be higher than distributor storage with package delivery, as you need to be relatively short distance of customers. Your transportation costs are going to be high because of these milk runs that you have to do. Okay, because you do them in smaller vehicles, right? You're not sending like 52-foot long big trucks to do that, because these repair shops are, you know, within cities with small access. Dealerships, you know, they don't They may not have access to a full big trucks rolling in, and they may not have these loading and unloading docks. So you'll need to have smaller trucks, which need to have a lift gate service to be able to put the parts down, or vans. Sometimes they use vans. Sometimes they use small trucks. Okay. So the last mile delivery costs are going to be high. Okay. Now, are they going to be higher than package delivery or not? That is the question. Okay. And in my view, it's not as clear cut whether the costs are higher here, the outbound cost from the DC, or in number 3 here, because packages delivery can get expensive pretty fast. You may spend like $5 to $10 per package to have the package shipped from here to the customer's home. Okay. But the idea is this. The idea is that UPS, FedEx that you're using, okay, or US Post Service, or DHL, whatever of these package carriers you're using, they have highly optimized operations because they're delivering thousands and thousands of packages a day. They're not just delivering for you and your customers. So a UPS or FedEx truck is going to have higher utilization doing this package delivery than your vans will have doing this round robin stuff. Okay, so that's the default assumption, that your scale, econs of scale in doing this round robin delivery and utilization of resources cannot match what DHL and UPS and FedEx can achieve. So the idea is that UPS, FedEx, and US Postal Service are going to be more efficient. They might take longer, but they'll be more efficient than doing this in-house, because here you have to have your own fleet, and having your own fleet just for your products and your customers and your delivery is likely to be more expensive. Okay, so that's the assumption on which this is written. Okay, but what sometimes happens is you have third-party logistics companies which can do this round-robin delivery for you, and they're doing it for many different companies. So they're not just delivering, let's say, appliances by one brand. They're delivering appliances of all the brands in the region. They are the 3PL that do appliance delivery for that geographic region. And it is possible, theoretically at least, that they could achieve very high utilization and economies of scale if they're delivering for many different manufacturers and brands. And then they could, because it depends on the item too. Shipping a washing machine or a dishwasher through FedEx, UPS is going to be super expensive. But doing it with a 3PL that does it for all different brands and can have high utilization of its assets may be cheaper. On the contrary, if you're going to be delivering small items like, a headphone or a USB drive, then this is going to be super inefficient to send out your vans and trucks delivering these small value items. And this is going to be a lot more efficient to do it with UPS and FedEx to ship, headphones, USB drives, small peripherals, small items like that. Okay. So so this thing here, I want you to realize, is true in some cases. This is true for low value items, but for heavy, big, expensive items, this might actually be cheaper than 3. Shipping a refrigerator by UPS is going to be so expensive, it's not going to make sense. Okay, so it really depends on what we are working with. Okay, physical cost is going to be higher than 3, and 2 and 1, because you have all these small DCs very near the customer, because you have to do these round robin trips in smaller trucks. Okay. Service analysis is very good. You can do 4-hour, 2-hour delivery. Especially at automotive parts, it's very common to get a part in 2 hours after you order from a repair shop, because the DC is so close, like 20 miles away, 15 miles away, and they have trucks and vans going out throughout the day doing deliveries. Okay. For availability, it's going to be expensive if you want to have a range of SKUs available, because you need to have so many of these DCs. You have to be close to the customer. You need to have a lot of these DCs in the middle. You have a lot of them, because you have to be close to the customer. You can't be very far. Okay. And so physical cost will be higher. Now, returnability is going to be better. Well, it again depends a little bit because it's very hard to return a refrigerator. That company that delivered is going to have to come and pick it up. But for smaller items, you're going to ship it a shorter distance, or if they're doing delivery in your area, they can maybe do a pickup service for returns too. So it kind of depends on all those factors. Are they doing pickups for returns, or are you having to ship it with a postal service? But it's not going to be, if you're using a postal service, it's going to be the same as number 3. But if there's some other option being used, like the delivery trucks are also picking up returns, then it's going to be easier because you just sit at home and they come and pick up the item and take it back. Like if you buy furniture from Macy's and you return it, the Macy's truck or the Macy's hired 3PL provider, third-party logistics provider, will come and pick up the sofa and take it back, and you won't have to do anything. It's going to be very easy. So it kind of depends on how you're doing the returns. Now, number 5 is your traditional retail. It's like Walmart stores, Kroger stores, Meijer stores, where you have these retail stores right here. And customers drive to the retail, pick up the items, and come back. So from the retail store, the delivery to customers' home is not your responsibility. You just move the stuff to retail stores. And then, and actually now after COVID, you have retail stores providing home delivery. Like you can order home delivery from Kroger. There's a minimum order size, or you have to be a paying member of some service. You have to pay for the home delivery, right? But for some payment, you can get home delivery. They're providing that as a separate service. But majority of their sales are through customers coming to their stores, picking up the product, taking it home. They don't have to worry about the final leg of the delivery. They just have to worry about getting stuff here till here. So you have a few large DCs you can send truckloads here, and you can send truckloads here, because the retail store, you can give them just one shipment per week or one shipment every 2 weeks, and every single product you ship them is not going to fill the whole truck, but you can ship them like 100 different products in one truck and still ship a whole truck to a retail store, right? So you can have, or maybe you hit 2 close by retail stores. This is in town 1, in the next town over, and then you come back. So you could hit 2 stores in one go and send a truckload out. So because of that, you have economies of scale. This network, one thing you have to remember is you have economies of scale in transportation. Okay, so your transportation will be fine. Your cost will be, you will be efficient in transportation. But because you have so many retail stores, because they have to be close to the customer is not willing to drive 100 miles to go to a retail store. Like people don't like driving 100 miles to go to, maybe IKEA, you make a trip to the next city over to go to IKEA, but most retail, you're not driving 100 miles to go to retail. You need to have a big network of retail stores. Imagine how many Walmart stores Walmart has in the US. I think they say that they are within 5 miles of 80% of the US population or something. Right? So you have a lot of retail stores. So inventory costs are through the roof because all of the retail stores have to have inventory, at least of the fast moving stuff. Okay, so because you have so many retail locations and all of them have to have inventory costs are through the roof, facility costs are through the roof, but your transportation is going to be efficient. So remember, we started off with network 1, where there was no intermediate, no retailers, no distribution centers, or drop shipping direct from manufacturer to customer's home. So very low inventory cost, very low facility costs, but high transportation costs. This is the opposite of that. Number 5 is the opposite of number 1. Number 5, transportation is the only thing that's efficient. Inventory and facility costs are through the roof. Number 1, inventory and facility costs are efficient. Transportation is through the roof because you're shipping these small packages very, very long distances. Okay, so number 5 and number 1 are like the opposites. Okay, so then these next 2 slides just say the same thing. Inventory costs are going to be very high. Transportation cost is where you save your money. Facility cost is going to be very high. Okay, in terms of customer service, very high response time. But it's going to be expensive to give a large variety of products because they need a bigger store, right? So if you have smaller retail stores, that's going to be cheaper, but then you can't have a lot of product variety there. So one thing Walmart has going for it, Walmart opens these large stores and have a lot of product variety. So you go to Walmart, you can buy all sorts. You can buy clothes, shoes, bread, milk, butter at the same place. Like imagine, like before Walmart and before this big box retail, you would have to go to like multiple stores. You have to go to a clothing store to buy clothes, a shoe store to buy shoes, a grocery store to buy butter and milk and bread, right? And then another toy store to buy toys, and a bookstore to buy books. And now you can get all of that in one store in Walmart, right? So product variety is expensive to offer, but some retail will offer it, some will not. Some retail will be smaller stores and less variety. Some will offer it more, but then have to pay the price to offer more variety. Right? So it tends to be lower than other options, because imagine, even though Walmart offers a lot of variety, the number of different things you can buy at Walmart is much less than the number of things you can buy at walmart.com or amazon.com. Online, you can buy a lot more stuff because inventory is centralized in a few large DCs. They can afford to offer a high product variety. It's cost effective. But when you go to retail, even with big stores, you can't offer that much variety. So customer experience depends. Do customers just want to be lazy and get delivery at home? Or are they willing to go and to the shop and buy the stuff? And it can vary a lot by item. So some people want to touch and feel clothing they want to buy. They want to try it on in a fitting room. So they want to order clothing online. Some people want to go and wear the shoe and test it to see if it's comfortable before they buy shoes. And they don't want to order it online. So for these high informationally complex items, like a shoe, you have to check the fitting, the comfort, arch support, all these things. Or clothes, you have to check fitting, the size, the color, how it looks in real daylight, not just like a picture, which the color and the contrast could have been adjusted. So in this high informationally complex product, we have to touch and feel the product. Customer experience can actually be better with retail stores than online. But for other products, online may be better. Just get it at home. You don't have to go out of your home. Time to market is going to be very high because you have to put new product that you launched in all these retail stores before you make it available for sale. So you have to move it all through. You move to your DCs, move to retail stores, and you have to hydrate your network with that new product before you can start selling it. Returnability is the easiest and the highest. You just drive 5 miles or 3 miles or 2 miles to your nearest Walmart and you return the stuff. No need to spend any money on shipping. You get your money right away from the customer return. And so it's really good. Now, this is the thing I told you, that companies will sometimes combine different networks for different segments of products. They'll segment their products and say, for this product segment, this is the type of network I'm going to use, and for this product network. So for example, I said Amazon.com may do number 4, this one, for, let me just erase this. Okay, so Amazon may do number 4 for Prime delivery items, for items available on Amazon Prime. Okay, and Amazon may do this for slow moving items. And Amazon may do drop shipping with in-transit merge, or just drop shipping, one of the two, for very slow moving items. Items that sell very rarely, but Amazon is known to have these items. You may need a connector cable to connect an old piece of electronics, okay, or a very old printer or something, and you can't find that cable in Best Buy, you can't find it in Walmart, you can't find it anywhere, but you go to Amazon.com, it's there. They may sell like maybe 5 of those cable in a year, but they can do it because they just pass on the order to the manufacturer, who makes that cable still or has some inventory, and they ship it to you. Or they may do it okay, with the large national DC or central DC, but they're not going to carry that rare cable in all of their regional DCs, which are doing prime shipments. Okay, so depending on the value of the item, whether it's fast moving or slow moving, Amazon may use a combination of these networks, because Amazon has regional distribution centers close to the customer, and it has more centralized distribution networks, distribution centers, and then it also just does drop shipping for manufacturers too. So it does all 3 things. The last mile delivery and retail store are often combined. So for example, you can go to a Home Depot store and buy stuff from Home Depot store, but sometimes some stuff is not available there, so you order online and that gets delivered to your home. You can order a lawnmower from homedepot.com and they'll have a 3PL company with their truck come and drop off the lawnmower on your driveway. Or you can go to the retail store in Home Depot and buy the lawnmower that's available there and bring it back in your car, right? So a lot of companies are combining the different types of logistics network for different types of products. Okay. Remember, the more centralized the inventory is, the more variety you can offer, because for low cost you can even keep slow moving items with unpredictable demand. So centralization often helps with slow moving items with unpredictable demand, but fast moving items with predictable demand, it's okay to have inventory close to the customer because you don't need a lot of safety stock and it's fast moving. You're not storing inventory for a long time. It comes in and goes, comes in and goes. This is the comparison of the 5 generic networks. So you can see here that retail storage, because this is number 5. Okay, so number 5 is this, and so they're not in order that I presented them, so I've added the numbers on top. The number 5 type is this, number 1 is this, and so on. Okay, so you can see the response time is the fastest with retail because the retail stores are closest to the customer. No other option gets as close to the customer as retail, but number 4 gets pretty close because, as I mentioned, automotive spare parts, you can get them in 2 to 4 hours, but a Walmart store close to you can get in 20 minutes. So nobody beats this in response time, option 5, but option 4 gets close. Okay. Product variety, drop shipping, you can't beat drop shipping because inventory is only in one location. The most centralized option for inventory, you have the most inventory centralization in option 1 and 2, and so you can have a lot of variety. And this drop shipping allows Walmart.com, Amazon.com to provide you with more variety, and HomeDepot.com to give you more variety versus going to the Walmart retail store or the Home Depot retail store. You only see fast moving items there, but on their websites you can order some slow moving items that are rare, they don't have high demand items, are not used by a lot of people, only few people use it, specialized items, but they might be doing drop shipping for them or moving them from a central warehouse. So they might be doing option 1, 2, or 3 for those slow moving items. So you can read this table. It just summarizes everything we have talked about. So in the last 30-40 minutes, whatever I've talked about is summarized in this table. Okay, remember that 1 corresponds to strongest appropriateness or performance in that dimension, and 5 is like the worst. So small numbers are good, big numbers are bad in this table. Okay, this table is similar. Okay, it's about when is which one suitable. So positive points are good and negative points are bad. Okay, this is talking about product characteristics. This one is talking about cost and customers and the customer service aspects. But this is talking about the product types that have a high demand, medium demand, low demand, variety, customer effort. Okay. This is related to customer service. This table is looking at different dimensions than this table. So you have to look at both tables to see which network is more appropriate. Okay. So here what you'll see is that for low demand products, retail is bad because you're going to have a lot of inventory cost to put low demand products in all of your retail stores. Okay. Centralizing inventory at distribution centers is okay for slow moving products, or at the manufacturer is also okay. So that's the plus ones. Very low demand products, you only want to do manufacturer storage because it's very expensive to keep very, very low demand products really demanded in your DCs or retail stores. High product value, okay. Look at this one, distributed storage with last mile delivery. It's kind of neutral because this is your appliances, your automotive car parts, which are especially expensive parts, because it makes sense to be delivering 10, 20 of those parts a day in a truck because that's like $1,000 of revenue. So it's feasible to do. Okay. And this one is +2 here. They're not thinking about the size and weight of the item. So it's +2 for smaller high value items like iPhones. It makes sense to have something like an iPhone shipped from the manufacturer to you, but it doesn't make sense for a refrigerator, which is huge, to be shipped from the manufacturer directly to you, because it makes more sense to fill a whole truck with refrigerators, send them to a DC close to you, and then send them on a small truck from DC to you. Okay, so you have to remember that product volume, weight, value, those things can change the numbers in these summary tables. Okay, because there's so many different types of products, it's very hard to make this table that applies to all types of products. So they've done it a lot of times thinking of just smaller products, but sometimes for very big and heavy products, this table may not make sense. So you have to use your logic, your thinking. If you understand the relationships we talked about in the beginning of this lecture, and you understood our discussion of the 5 types of network, you can understand the logic on how to evaluate these options for different types of products. Okay. So these tables are kind of summarizing what we talked about already. Now, the last topic we're going to talk about is omni-channel retailing. Okay, and omni-channel retailing, what is it? Omni-channel means you have multiple channels to reach the customer. So like Walmart, you can drive up to a Walmart store and buy something and pay cash and walk out. You can order on walmart.com for in-store pickup, so you don't have to pay a shipping fee. So I can order just one small item and say I'll pick it up from a Walmart store, and that's going to be a free pickup. Like, they're not going to charge me any shipping for it. Even if the item is not at the Walmart store, they're going to ship the item to the Walmart store, because they have trucks going to their Walmart stores like frequently. So they put the item on a truck and it'll go to the Walmart store. And then I can go there when it's available and pick it up without having to pay for shipping. Or I can order from walmart.com for home delivery and pay for shipping, unless I have Walmart Plus or something like that, right? So that means I have 3 channels to interact with Walmart. Walmart physical store to go pick up the item, walmart.com with in-store pickup, walmart.com with home delivery. Okay, so that's omni-channel retailing. They are giving me options as a customer on how I interact with them. And so this came about because a lot of traditional retail business models were out-competed by a combination of online and physical. So imagine Blockbuster. You had to go to Blockbuster stores to rent DVDs or Blu-rays or VHS tapes to watch movies. But they were out-competed by a combination of online and physical. For older releases, it's much more convenient and cost-effective to just sit at home and click Netflix. But Netflix may not have the latest movie releases, and then you can just go to these red box vending machines and rent a Blu-ray or a DVD for the latest releases. And these red box vending machines have limited space, so they're only going to stock what's hot, what's just current and new, the latest movie releases, and they're not going to store 10-year-old season of some of your favorite TV serial or whatever. For that, you go to Netflix. So combination of Netflix plus Redbox gives you better service at a lower cost than Blockbuster. So Blockbuster was replaced by a combination of online and physical. Circuit City, physical store for electronics, replaced by a combination of online and physical. For high expensive items like a big expensive TV, you want to go to the store, you want to check it out, you want to see the colors, you want to see the screen. But for many other items, you can just order online. And so, a lot of people do a mix. They do some electronic shopping online, they do some electronic shopping from a store like Costco. Right? So the combination of physical and online has defeated physical only retail stores, chains like Circuit City. And that's where the idea of omnichannel comes from, that customers prefer different channels for different types of purchases, and different customers have different preferences. So if you do omnichannel retailing, you're basically having so many options that every customer will find something that suits them. Okay. So a retail channel exchanges information, product, and funds. In omnichannel retail, you try to be cost expensive and responsive by combining the complementary strengths of online and physical to do these things. So information, you could go online, look at pictures, customer reviews, and place an order online. The information travels from the online website to the distribution center to the manufacturer. That's information flow. Or if you go to a physical Walmart store and you pick something up, you go to the cashier, that's information flow. You tell the cashier you want to buy that thing. Funds, you may pay online or you may pay in store. That's how funds travel. And product, you may just pick up the product from a physical store or to make it delivered to your home. That's how the product travels in different channels. And so each channel has its own way of delivering the product, getting the information, gathering the funds. Physical stores are good at letting customers experience high information complexity products. This is a very important idea. You need to know what do we mean by high information complexity products. Okay, these are products where the customer needs to have a lot of interaction to figure out which product is best for them. So maybe they need to wear the shoe to check if it's comfortable. Maybe, their foot is a little bit wide and they want to check if the wide option suits them or the regular option is wide enough that it suits them. These are high information complexity products that will fit your body. Fashion clothing. Appliances, you may want to check the appliance, see how much space is in the dishwasher. You may want to see what the dimensions are. Will it fit in your kitchen? And so on, right? So jewelry, you want to try it on, you want to see how it looks on you. You don't want to just buy it based off a picture because you want to see how it looks, around your arm or neck or whatever. So these are high information complexity products where you need to interact with the product to figure out if it suits you or not. For that, physical stores are awesome, right? Which is why all of jewelry shopping has not moved online. All of appliance shopping has not moved online. All of clothing and shoe shopping has not moved online. Okay. The online channel is very cost effective at selling products with unpredictable demand. Okay. But it doesn't work well with things with information complexity products. So other examples of information, let me put some examples here. So that's jewelry is informationally complex. Fashion clothing. Okay, fashion clothing, informationally complex. Shoes, appliances, cars, kitchen hardware, like cabinets, sinks, because the fitting, the size, a lot of things there matter. They have to come measure your kitchen, or you have to take measurements and go to their showroom and work with an advisor there, right? So it's highly information complex. Okay, so not just cars, any automobiles. So you want to buy SUV, you want to buy a truck, all those things. So these things are informationally complex products. Retail showroom stuff works well, but online works well for some other shopping where it's not that informationally complex. So you can combine both. So Walmart is omni-channel, combines both. Amazon is omni-channel. Actually, most retailers now are omni-channel. Like all retailers have an online channel and a website and physical stores and showroom. Even Amazon has some physical stores for their grocery, Whole Foods business they acquired with some grocery type stuff that they were selling, at least at some point. I don't know if they still have them, but at some point they had some physical places for the Whole Foods type of stuff. Okay, so an effective portfolio, you can sell predictable demand items as well as informationally complex items at retail stores. And you can use retail stores as pickup locations for smaller orders where it's not cost effective to ship the order to customer's home. And then you can use the online channel for unpredictable demand items or rare items, or for larger customer orders where it makes sense to deliver to the customer's home. And so together, online plus physical is able to meet the needs of a large number of customers, like different customers, different types of products, and different types of customer needs. Okay. Why do we say unpredictable demand? Because the more unpredictable demand, the more the safety stock you need. Okay. So if you have inventory in many different locations, your inventory costs go through the roof because you safety stock at every single location. So it's expensive for Walmart to put slow-moving, unpredictable demand items in its retail stores. It's gonna just have too much inventory in the retail stores of that. But you can centralize that inventory. Remember the square root law we talked about earlier? You benefit from the square root law. You centralize the inventory of unpredictable, slow-moving products in central warehouses. You benefit from the square root law. You need less inventory there to fulfill the same level of, to handle the same level of demand. Okay. So these are like in omni-channel retailing, we have this kind of 2x2 matrix. Okay. So you have information. Do we give information face-to-face or through online channel? If you give information face-to-face, either you have retail stores or you have showrooms. Like for kitchen cabinets, you're going to have to go to a showroom. For kitchen counters, countertops, sinks, you may have to go to a showroom. And if you think about Home Depot combines a retail store and a showroom. They have area where they show you sinks and other stuff, and they have a person there who can help you with the software to design your kitchen and kitchen cabinets and so on. So Home Depot combines these two together. Okay. And if you're giving information online, you're ordering online, then you can have online information like on a website, and then you pick up from a store or some location, pickup location, or you do online with home delivery. Okay. So Walmart, for example, let me erase that. Walmart, for example, does this. I can order walmart.com for pickup at a Walmart store. Walmart does this. I can order at Walmart to get home delivery, and Walmart also does this. I can go to a Walmart store. Okay, so doing 3 of them. Okay. Whereas something like an appliance store may just do this. You go to a showroom, you can see the display models, you pick the appliance that you want, and then their truck will go from their DC to do home delivery for the heavy appliance and install it. So furniture and appliance will often do this, especially furniture. You go to a showroom, you sit on the sofa, you check it, you choose your fabric. Then in the distribution center / warehouse, they put the fabric on your sofa and then you deliver it to your home on a truck, and they take it to your home and put it inside your home. Okay. So these are all examples of omni-channel, and a company may be doing 1 or more of these 4 boxes. Okay, so now you can look at these 4 and kind of compare them. Okay, in retail, inventory is going to be high. Okay, but in showrooms and online, the inventory is going to be lower. It's the lowest in online plus home delivery. It depends on how many DCs they have. If they have few large DCs, it's going to be very low. If they have many smaller DCs, it's going to be medium. Okay, this is low to medium for the same reason that you have inventory at showrooms, and you're going to have to have many showrooms. People don't want to drive 100, 200 miles to go to a showroom. So you have many showrooms. You have a lot of inventory stuck in the showrooms for display pieces, and that's why it's low to medium. And then the home delivery, when you have home delivery of large appliances, you want to do those round robin. You want to do, this part here. And when you're doing this part here, your DC can't be too far off from the customer home. Okay. So that is why it's going to be low to medium, basically for both of these. Okay. And then transportation by customer. In a retail store, the customer spends the time, effort, and fuel to take stuff from Walmart store or Costco, take it to their home, right? But if you get home delivery, customers do nothing. So that's obvious, right? Transportation by retail, in traditional retail is low because you send truckloads all the way to your big retail stores. But in home delivery, it's going to be high because you have to visit each customer's home and deliver the product there. Okay, so it's fairly straightforward based on the logic we've studied so far. So let's get some omnichannel examples. 7-Eleven stores in Japan, and I already gave you some examples like Walmart.com, HomeDepot.com, these examples. So 7-Eleven in Japan, they have these small convenience stores where they sell fresh food, sandwiches, lunch items, breakfast items, and fast-moving items. So they sell only 3,000 of the most popular items at these convenience stores, corner stores. But then from their website, you can order 3 million, up to 3 million different items are available for online ordering. And then you can pay to be shipped to your home, or you can pay maybe to be picked up at the store, something like that. So they're doing this omni-channel retailing just like Walmart is doing. Okay. Best Buy does the same thing. You can go to Best Buy store, pick up an item, but you can have more product availability on bestbuy.com, where you can pay a little bit of shipping to have it delivered to your home, or you can have it sent to store for in-store pickup. Amazon, Walmart, so all of modern retail basically does omni-channel, right? So that's why it's important to understand. Omnichannel, what is omnichannel doing is basically the 5 types of networks we talked about. It's combining different networks for different product segments and becoming omnichannel in that way, taking online and brick and mortar retail and combining them in a way, or taking online from regional DCs like Amazon Prime and combining it with online with central DCs, which is non-Amazon Prime items, which are not stored close to you, and combining those 2 networks. So it's combining those 5 types of networks in different ways to get, to meet the needs of different types of customers. So that's it for this lecture. Hopefully this gives you the tools to look at the overall logistics network, especially the distribution side, the finished goods size. When the manufacturer has produced finished goods from there to the customer's home, that part of the supply chain, you can analyze that. You can look at different strategic options, which type of networks you want to have, what are the pros and cons of them, and analyze a company's network, look at the customer needs, and kind of reorient or reorganize it if you need to, and do this sort of analysis. It's a very important skill to have, and hopefully you can do that now that you understand the arguments and the logic, and understand those relationships we talked about in the beginning of this lecture.